Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadri ki jai. Okay. Jai Jagannath. Sri Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Bhramara-gita ki jai. Gaur Bhakta-vrinda ki jai. Gaur Pramanand. Hari Hari Bol. So, welcome to all again. Good evening from Bulgaria, and good afternoon or good morning, wherever you may be connected in the States, South America, and so on. So today we are continuing. There's a special class today and next Monday, because during the last Mondays for the last, 3 months or so, I've been lecturing on the Bhramara Gītā. So we don't want to interrupt that flow, and we want also to make you part of that, to the ones who have not been able to follow that series, which is basically the song of the bumblebee, when Sri Radha is speaking in divine madness to bumblebee, to Uddhav through the bumblebee, we could say also, or to Krishna through Uddhav through the bumblebee, something like that. So today we are in our meeting number 13 already. So I will make some brief recap for those of you here present who have not been following this series very briefly, and especially of the last lecture. And this is somehow connected to what we will be starting from tomorrow here in Bulgaria, a series on lectures on Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, all of which converges in his staying in Gambhira and his relishing Radha Bhav and being successful in the main purpose of his descent. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, we mentioned this some classes before regarding Bhramara Gītā, that the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that the experience that Mahaprabhu had in Gambhira exactly corresponded with the mode in which Sri Radha spoke to the bumblebee. The ecstasy of separation, in other words, that she was going through here in the Bhramara Gītā is the exact parallel of what Mahaprabhu, Krishna, in the mode of Radha, in separation from Krishna, was experiencing his last chapter of his Lila. So it's a very interesting correlation between Gaur Lila, the highest point of Gaur Lila, and this Bhramara Gītā, which according to many acharyas is the most important chapter of the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam, chapter 47 of the 10th canto. And of course, this song of Sri Radha, Bhramara Gītā, is one of many songs in the Bhagavatam. There are many songs, and there are 6 main songs of the gopis in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, which are the Venu Gītā, Pranaya Gītā, Gopi Gītā, Jugal Gītā, Viraha Gītā, and Bhramara Gītā. So we have been going through all of them in Spanish for the last 3 years. So now I'm finishing that series with this last one series of Bhramara Gītā, which I'm doing in Spanish and also in English. So today we are studying the 8th verse. This is our meeting number 13, because we made 5 introductory meetings to give context to such a high point of the Bhagavatam. And then we are spending one lecture for each one of the 10 verses of Bhramara Gītā. In each one of these 10 verses, Sri Radha speaks again in Divyan Mad, which means divine madness, the height of her Mahabhava, Adiruddha Mahabhava more. And she speaks different types of what's called colorful talks, or delirious, you say? Delirious speech, called Chitra Jalpa. So there are 10 types of Chitra Jalpa, and Bhramara Gītā has 10 verses. So each one of the 10 verses of Bhramara Gītā correspond with each one of these types of Chitra Jalpa. So we are also trying to follow that. So today again, we are seeing verse number 8. There are 10 verses in the Bhramara Gītā. So we are reaching the end of this section. And this is verse 19 in the 47th chapter of the 10th canto. But as usual, I'm making a not so brief recap of the previous class, generally. So I will do it nonetheless. So in last verse, I will read. This is a very high section. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, fasten your seatbelts to begin with. And if something is way above your head, no problem. We are all going through that. But I'm sure some points will be able to be drawn. So the previous verse, that we saw previous Monday, Sri Radha is saying to the bumblebee. And we will see in each of these verses, she's abusing Krishna from tip to toe. But at the same time, she's increasing her attachment. She's increasing her love for him in the context of abusing him, which sounds kind of contradictory and paradoxical, but that's what the ultimate love is about. So she's saying, to hear about the pastimes that Krishna regularly performs is nectar for the ears. For those who relish just a single drop of that nectar, even once, their dedication to material duality is ruined. Many such persons have suddenly given up their wretched homes and families, and themselves, becoming wretched, traveled here to Vrindavan to wander about like birds, begging for their living. That was the verse we saw in our previous class. A very special praise of Sri Harikatha, actually. Even though it seems that she's cautioning us, be careful with the consequences of hearing Harikatha, your whole material life will be ruined. Actually, she's saying, well, that's the idea. So, of course, she's speaking mainly from her own vantage point here. She's speaking from her own experience. And she had left everything behind by entering in touch with one drop of Sri Harikatha, Harikatamrita, Rasayana Katha also. She has given up everything for Krishna's sake, basically. She's the greatest speaker of Harikatha. She's the most addicted personality to Harikatha, which is none different from Hari. Dustyajas tat katartha, she says in the previous verse to this one. I cannot stop, I can't leave Krishna, I can't live without Krishna, but I cannot live without Krishna Katha. Basically, that's her conclusion, and that applies very nicely for us as sadhakas. So basically, she's saying, and we of course are sharing the commentaries of the different main acharyas in our Bhagavad tradition in this connection. She's implying with this, everyone who hears Harikatha will live their mutual affection for one another. The husband will stop loving his wife, the wife will stop loving her husband, the children will stop loving their parents, and vice versa. All the material relationship will be ruined by entering in touch with this elixir. Of course, the idea here is the material attachment in those relationships, that all the scriptures are saying. When the scriptures say the dark well of material life, of family life, it doesn't mean you should get married. It means just do not get attached to that in materially speaking. Because you can be also a monk and be materially attached to your monasticism. So the problem is material attachment, basically. No? So Sri Radha again is saying, by hearing this, be careful because your whole material life will be ruined. So it seems she's cautioning us, do not go there. But actually, indirectly, she's saying, go there. I mean, you have to go there. That's so she's glorifying through condemnation. Condemnation is in English. That's called in Sanskrit Vyajastuti. So Vyajastuti, there's a type of poetry which presents this style. Now the famous verse we quoted in the last class, I won't go into detail now, Rupa Goswami's verse, who says, if you want to keep all your friends and all your nice material situation, do not go to the banks of the Jamuna, because there is one dark complexioned boy playing the flute there, and all your material duality will be gone. So do not go there. Actually, he's saying, go right now there. But indirectly. All this Bhramara-gita is full of parokshavad, which means indirect speech, especially in the context of Sri Radha's love for Krishna, which is Madhurya Bhav. Romantic love is full of indirect speech because Krishna himself says in the Bhagavatam, Paroksham Mama Chapriyam. Parokshavada Rishaya, Paroksham Mama Chapriyam. All the sages speak indirectly, and I, Krishna, say, I'm very fond of indirect speech, suggested meaning. I don't like when things are said explicitly, clearly. I like crooked stuff, basically, when things are not said directly. And romanticism is full of this. So since that pleases Krishna so much, of course, Sri Radha only lives to please Krishna. So she speaks, her speech is full of this parokshavad. And we need to develop proper ears and eyes to catch that. And therefore, Sri Radha is implying here, this message about Krishna, this Harikatha, is very difficult to put aside. I mean, it's so difficult, so impossible, basically. Because ultimately it constitutes supreme goal of life. This is the glorification here. Harikatha is our ultimate goal of life. It's not just a means to a goal, but the goal itself. The Bhagavatam says, Nibritta Tarasero Pagiya Manat. Avosada Chotra Mano Viraman. This Harikatha is compared like with a tonic, like a medicine, but also in Ayurveda, you have many medicines like ashwagandha or some others, which you can take even when you are healthy. It's not just when you are sick, take this, but when you are healthy, take this. So Harikatha is like this. It's not take Harikatha to get free from material life, but when you are liberated, you can continue drinking Harikatha more and more and more and more. 1 second, I have some technical detail here. So this is the idea that Srila is establishing here. Harikatha is the means and the goal, bhakti. So this verse that we saw last week constitute the type of Chitra Jalpa, remember 10 times of map talk, called Abhijalpa. Abhijalpa. And Rupa Goswami defines each one of them in the Ujjval Nilamani. He says, when a lover indirectly states with remorse that her beloved is fit to be given up because he's so cruel that he tortures even the innocent birds, or because that person makes other people to act like birds, that's Abhijalpa. Birds, like she was saying here in the verse, they end up leaving everything and come to Vrindavan begging, like birds taking here and there, which actually the commentators say, ultimately the birds are the Hamsas, the Paramahamsas, the great swans that take the essence of everything and live just sustained by Krishna. So it's a praise, again, in disguise. And we concluded our previous meeting also to make sure that we are not misreading Radha's bhav for Krishna and Krishna's bhav for Radha, because when Radha criticizes Krishna, we may like be biased towards her and think, oh, that Krishna is so cruel, he's really a rascal, or like this. And I know he's suffering as she's suffering in separation. And you can also misread Sri Radha, say, oh, she's criticizing Krishna so much, she actually doesn't love him. No, not like that. So we tried to complement this by sharing some ideas from one book from Sri Vishwanath Thakur called Prem Samput, Love Locket. Okay. So I won't tell the whole story again, but basically Sri Krishna appearing in disguise as a heavenly damsel in front of Sri Radha and starting to abuse Krishna. Krishna himself in disguise saying, oh, you don't deserve that, Krishna. You love him so much, but he's such a womanizer and playboy and rascal. He's leaving you all in the Rasa-lila, then he left you alone. He doesn't love you. You love him. So Shira said, no, it's not like that. And she starts to explain to Krishna, without realizing he's Krishna, how Krishna loves her and how she loves Krishna. So really make it clear how both of them are really the same person, if you will, one soul in two bodies for the purpose of rasa. But the point is that Krishna, as a heavenly damsel, criticizes Krishna, and is abusing Krishna like Sri Radha is abusing Krishna here in the Bhramara-gita. But Sri Radha said, no, it's not like that. But she's saying that. Only she can say that, if you will, in a particular mode, if you will, in this context. So eventually she starts to give a whole dissertation about the nature of love, how it's impossible to define in theory, but you need the experience and the proximity with someone with that experience, how love, as we spoke the other day, nourishes from obstacles instead of becoming diluted. That's the nature of love. How it's crooked, how it appears to be something while it is something else. Today we will continue with that, especially between Radha and Krishna. It seems that's lust. No? It seems that it's some teenage romantic affair, but it's the purest, more like pure type of love. But it disguises itself. That's the nature of love. It's crooked, it's indirect, and it's humble. So it doesn't present it, oh, I love you. That's the nature of love. If you love someone, Sri Radha says, you won't say I love you. For many reasons. One of them is, again, it's indirect. You won't be like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Second, you won't feel the need to say that. Because if I tell you too many times I love you, you say, why you are telling that so many times to me? I mean, you're trying to convince me about something. And finally, because when you love someone, I love you. You say I. Still there is a sense of I. In real love, you are in self-forgetfulness. The sense of I and you as separate units, as my Guru Maharaj will say, I and you became we. So real love won't allow for this type of speech to happen. And we see in this world so many people say I love you, and after 2 weeks they are in the court, like dividing the properties and all this stuff. So that happens also. So she concludes in this way, like describing all this and Krishna as the heavenly damsels, eventually says, okay, if your love for Krishna is real and his love for you is real, by the strength of your love, you will have to be able to make him appear in front of you now, if you meditate in him only. And Sri Radha says, wow, that's a challenge. But she tried. So she closed her eyes like a yogini and starts to pray to Surya Dev. It's her Istadev. If I really love Krishna, Surya Dev, please make me him. And meanwhile, she's with the eye closed praying. Krishna is taking off all the garments and became a damsel. So when she opens her eyes, Krishna's there. Oh, confirming your love is real. So a brief summary. Again, it's a very beautiful work that I really recommend you may study. Not so long, also in detail. So that's some not so brief recap from the last class we had. So today we are continuing with verse number 8 of this Bhramara-gita. So before going to the verse itself, I will, because between verses there's always some situation that connects one verse with the other. The bumblebee speaking, but actually the bumblebee that Acharyas mentioned is not speaking, but Sri Radha in her Divyan Mad hears the bumblebee buzzing and she interprets. He's saying this or that, and she replies to that so-called speech with the next verse and the next verse and the next verse. So Srila Sridhar Swami, the very ancient revered commentator of the Bhagavatam, in his commentary Bhavarta Deepika, he says that at this point, to what we say now, the bumblebee will reply, or Sri Radha will hear that the bumblebee is saying, but why do you speak like this? I mean, why you are criticizing Krishna in this way? Why didn't you speak like this previously when you were enjoying along with him in a secret place? In those moments you were not saying all these abusive words, but why you are speaking now like this? So to this, Sri Radha will reply in today's verse. So I will read the verse in Sanskrit and also share then the translation. And I'm sharing here also in the chat for those who will like. So someone may share that in the Facebook streaming, please. So the verse says like this. Vayamritamiva jima vyahritam sradadhana kulikarutami bhaknya Krishna bhadyo harinya dadrishura sakrid etatanna kasparsati bra smara ruja upamantrim bhanyatam manya bharta. So Sri Radha says, replying to the bumblebee, if you will, faithfully taking his deceitful words as true, I mean Krishna's words as true, we became just like the black deer's foolish wives who trust the cruel hunter's song. Thus, we repeatedly felt the sharp pain of lust caused by the touch of his nails. O messenger, please talk about something besides Krishna. So again, these are very esoteric sections of the Bhagavatam, very deep meaning, which seems to be something else, and we really need the revelation from our Purvacharyas to really unpack the content of this. But first, let's go a little bit to the word-by-word meaning of this verse. The first line says again, Bayamritam iva jima vyahritam sradadana. So Sri Radha says Bayam. Bayam means we. So she's speaking in the name of the other gopis. So Bayamritam iva jima. So ritam means true. Iva means us or like. And jima vyahritam. Jima means deceptive. And vyahritam means speech. So his deceptive speech, we took it as if it were true, basically. Shradadana. Shradadana means trusting. We have that type of trust in him. We thought that Krishna's words to us, now we will explain later which type of words were true, while now we are realizing it was full of deception. So again, try to bear in mind who is saying that and in which context. No? Do not conclude like, oh yes, Krishna's a cheater, or I don't want to worship him then. No? Try to really maintain the proper context of this. Second line says, Kulita Rutami Bhaknya Krishna Baddo Harinya. So then comes some analogy to further illustrate Krishna's deceptiveness. Deceptiveness? Okay. Kulika means the hunter. Hunter. And Rutam, Kulika Rutam. So Rutam means like the song of the hunter. This is a classic analogy given by the gopis on many occasions. Iva Ajna. So Iva as if, so a comparison is made, as if, like the hunter. Ajna. Ajna means foolish. We, naive girls, innocent village people, uncivilized girls, we really didn't understand what's going on. Krishna Badvo Harinya. So Krishna Badvo, Krishna refers to Krishna, but here it doesn't refer to Krishna. Krishna refers here to the black deer, so which receives the name Krishna, because Krishna also means black. If you go to a dictionary, sometimes Krishna will be translated as black. For us, it's much more than that, but she rather uses this idea also to abuse Krishna in this context. He's black outside, he's black inside. His heart is dark, deep dark. Some verses before, she was afraid of even mentioning the word Sham or Krishna, black. So I'm afraid of everything blackish. So she referred to Krishna 2 verses or 3 verses back, like Asita, which means non-whitish, which is a way of saying blackish, and which is a way of saying Krishna. Let's see, in that particular sanchari, every one of these verses are sanchari bhavs. Sanchari bhavs means transitory ecstasies, which may take the form of abuse, fear, jealousy, envy, all this unbecoming stuff that we are told to transcend as sadhakas. But when our sadhaka life makes full circle and we are there on the Siddha platform, we are like, oh, the things are here back again. But all properly expressed in the context of Lila. So Krishna Badva. Badva means the wife. So the wives of the black deer. How do you say in English? Deer, also the female deer? Yeah.
How you call it? Male, female deer.
Doe. Doe.
Yeah.
Doe is plural also? Or does? Okay, no problem. I don't want to put you in a complex situation with your mother tongue. And Harinya. Harinya means the doe. So here is speaking about the two of them. No? So just like the black deer's foolish wife were attracted to the cruel hunter song, we were similarly attracted to the cruel hunter, the black hunter, Krishna. Dadrishura Sakrit, 3rd line. Itat Tannaka Sparsati Bra. So what happened? She said, Dadrishur, we experience a sakrit, means repeatedly. Itat, this. Tatnaka, his tatnaka, nails. So that's the analogy with the arrow of the hunter, Krishna's arrow-like nails. Sparsa means the touch, the contact of those nails. Tibra, sharp. So we were similarly like pierced as the black deer's wife by the hunter's arrow. We were similarly pierced by the contact of that black, whatever, hunter called Krishna. And the last line says, Smara rucho pamantrim bhanyatam anyavarta. So smara means lust. Raja, rucha, sorry, means the pain. So all this creates in us the pain of lust. So again, we will clarify this because this Dashri Radha has lust, and which type in that case. So then she directs to Bumblebee and say, Upamantrim. Upamantrim means messenger. Oh messenger, Bhajnatam Anya Bharta. Bhajnatam means please speak. Anya. Anya means something else, other. Bharta, topic. Speak about something else apart from Krishna. Because again, Sri Radha in her madness, she's hearing this bumblebee speaking about Krishna at every moment. Well, it is only buzzing here and there. I try to understand. She's speaking to the bumblebee as a messenger, while the actual messenger is Uddhava. And Uddhava is there witnessing all the situation. Until now, he was not able to open his mouth and say a single word yet. He's totally speechless and flabbergasted and dumbfounded, like witnessing Sri Radha's Mahabharata. So he will deliver the message, but till now he's receiving a message. So he's being schooled. He thought, I will school here. No, you enter for your PhD in Braj. He will receive his PhD here. So let's go to different commentators to this verse and trying to unpack its meaning in order of seniority. There is something there on? Or this working? That's some amplifier?
It's the fridge.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Я с ней ходила.
No. If it's the fridge, no problem. Okay. So we will continue, thank you. In order of seniority, first we will go to Sridhar Swami's commentary, and then we will go to Sanatan Goswami, and then we'll go to Jiva Goswami, and finally we will go to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Of course, they will share similar points in between, and that will be a way of going over and over to this verse. So let's go first to Srila Sridhar Swami. So he's saying basically that Sri Radha here implies that just as the doe, who are wives, so it seems it's plural, so just as the doe who are wives of the black deer, being foolish, they trust the song. Now the song of the hunter, it imitates the deer. Somehow he's able to do that. So the does trust, oh, my husband is calling me, basically. And that creates a whole parallel idea, because we will see now how also Sri Radha will refer to Krishna's, the gopis as Krishna's wives, like creating these ideas, we will see. So in the same way that the wives of the black deer follow the imitative song, if you will, of the hunter, as it were true, believing it were true. And therefore the result is that they experience the pain being struck with his arrows. That was the result of being attracted by that song. In the same way, we trusted the song also, but the words particularly of that crooked one. We see that in this verse, generally Sri Radha won't refer to Krishna directly by name, but he will say the non-whitish, the crooked one, he who, and so on. So we trusted those words as if they were true. And of that hunter, in previous verses, that's interesting, but in previous verses, Sri Radha say that she started to criticize Krishna in the context of criticizing his previous avatars. She started to criticize Ramachandra and Vamandev, but only to criticize Krishna, basically. He in his other previous descents, he shows some Aishwarya at that moment to increase her Madhurya. He killed the poor Bali, not Bali Maharaj, but Bali in the Ramayana, shooting arrows from his back, the king of monkeys, like a cruel hunter. And he killed him. He was a monkey. Why you will kill a hunter? Is someone who kills an animal for eating his flesh and surviving. But you cannot eat the flesh of a monkey. So that type of killing is criticizable even by hunters. And that was done by Krishna as Ram. And Ram is known as Maryada Purushottam. So if the personification of Dharma behaves like this, what to speak of Krishna? Ramachandra is Dhiradatta, a very sober dharmic hero. Krishna is Dhira Lalita, just a carefree, playful lover. So he's much more worthy of criticism, and so on. So here's going back to the idea of the hunter, and saying Krishna is even in his most dharmic avatar, even hunters criticize him. So what to speak himself as Krishna? He's another type of hunter, as you can see. So similarly, we have experienced this pain again and again, like the wives of the black deer. And what is that pain? The acute torment that comes from lusty desires. Again, now we will clarify what this agitation refers to. Caused by the contact with his fingernail. So she said, please narrate some other topic. So again, why lust? We said we're doing this summary with the Prem Samput, but Sri Radha tells to Krishna, actually Krishna has so much Prem, but his Prem is hiding in the form of lust, in the form of Kam. That's how love hides. So the love of the gopis is called, how is it called? Rupa Goswami. How does Rupa Goswami call love of the gopis? Yeah, second word. Yeah, thank you. Good compliment. Kama Rupa Bhakti. Kama Rupa Bhakti, which means, I mean, not the gopis, the one of the gopis here. Yeah, Kama Rupa Bhakti is the love of the gopis, which means something that Rupa takes the form of Kam. And Kam is generally translated as lust, like selfish desire. But again, it's taking the form of that. It is not that, because the very definition of Prem, of course, is the very opposite of lust. Atmendriya pritibamcha tari balikam Krishnendriya priticha dhare premana. So it is say that lust is defined as being in love with your own senses, basically. I'm just trying to satisfy the. Can you come closer because someone else is coming? Maybe you can have. And prem is defined as living for Krishna's sense enjoyment. Kam is living for your own sense enjoyment. That's Kam. And prem is living for Krishna's sense enjoyment. So Śrī Radha is the very personification of living for Krishna's sense enjoyment. So it cannot be Kam. It's prem. But it takes the form of Kam. It's hiding. The glory of prem tends to hide itself, especially the type of prem that Śrī Radha has, which is parakiya. Parakiya means illicit, illegal, according to social norms, if you will, which increase the tension, the emotional dynamics of it. The very word gopi comes from the verbal, the dhatu, which in Sanskrit gup, and gup has to do with gupta. Gupta means hidden. So gopi means constantly they are hiding their love, because again, in the dynamic of the lila, it is not something that can be expressed openly. So that creates another sense of intensity, dynamic, union, separation, and so on. So in this way, basically, the main difference between Kam and Prem is not the form it takes outwardly, but the inner motivation. Because externally, it seems that Śrī Radha's attraction to Krishna is out of like a teenage lady, a teenage boy, and that's all. Romeo and Juliet, or whatever analogy you want to make in the West. But when you examine the inner motivation, you realize, oh my gosh, this is the highest degree of selflessness and self-forgetfulness in divine love and extreme sacrifice, and so many virtues are there. So again, externally they may seem the same. Internally, there's an ocean of difference between the two, and that requires from us internal vision. Therefore, because if you only judge things by their external appearance, you will be really misled. I mean, you can read the Bhagavatam, and that's what happened. I mean, many people read the Bhagavatam and concluded you are worshiping a perverted God or something like that. Degraded personality. He's dancing with so many ladies. I think here in Eastern Europe was the situation, right? It was in Poland. That one nun took devotees to the court.
Oh, yeah.
You know the story. I will tell it briefly for you to know. You must know, but this nun took the devotees to court, saying you are worshiping a playboy god, basically. Has 16,000 wives, and he has lovers on top of that, uncountable, and all this from the Bhagavatam, basically. So, and she presented all these quotes from the Bhagavatam, showing her point for hours, and eventually was the turn of the devotee to speak, and the devotee basically said, "I only have one question to present to the nun, and that's my whole testimony, basically." And he asked to the nun, and everyone was like shocked because this lady spoke for hours. He only had one question to present. That was his whole presentation. Yeah. So he asked to the nun, "Do you have a ring, right?" Mm-hmm. Yes, she said. "What's the meaning of the ring?" She was not replying. She was like, and the judge said, "Oh, please, you have to reply the question. What's the ring?" "The ring means that I'm married with Jesus." So the devotee said, "I don't have anything else to say." I mean, there may be more than 60,000 nuns. If that's the case, Jesus Christ is more of a playboy than Krishna. So we understand what does it mean really to be married with, to be in love with. It just doesn't mean just a mundane affair. That's the basic at the end. So this is the meaning of Srila Sridhar Swami. We are sharing the purpose of the different acharyas in this verse of the Bhramara Gītā for those who came just now. It's a very high section of the Bhagavatam, so hopefully all of you survive, and for sure you will take some points somehow or other. And if you don't survive, it's really auspicious to leave the body. Like Srivas Thakur said yesterday, no? If you leave your body with Mahaprabhu's kirtan, oh, okay, more suspicious. So let's continue with Sanatan Goswami Pad, Brihad Vaishnava Toshani commentary. So he's paraphrasing Śrī Radha and therefore showing the implications of her speech. So he says, or she says through him, basically, by hearing his pastimes, all this is connected with the previous last two verses also, the gopis say, we experience great pain. What can be said? Again, they are saying this in the madness of separation. It's not that do not hear about that. The pain of love. And as we mentioned, as we were speaking today with Krishna Karna, when you love, you suffer also. But you suffer in the context of love. It's a whole different constellation of material suffering. So for us, it's not about stop suffering, we say today in the morning, but learning to suffer. Learning to suffer, finding purpose. And for sure, Sri Radha is finding purpose. The word purpose in Sanskrit can be translated artha, or prayojan also sometimes. So prem, prayojan, panchama, purushartha, the highest level of purpose is discovered in love. So when you love, you discover the ultimate purpose of everything. So your suffering is in the context of the greatest mega ultra super purpose. So it's worthy experiencing. It's not just I have to avoid that, but actually it's desirable because so much purpose is being drawn from there. And that applies for us as sadhakas, no? That we sometimes we want just to stop suffering, but we don't want to learn from the suffering. So many deep lessons here. So Sanatana Goswami Prabhu continued, what can be said, paraphrasing Sri Radha? By his false words, we have experienced great suffering, believing his false words to be true. We suitable for the black person were like wives of the black deer. Again, Krishna refers here to the black deer. Krishna Sara sometimes is called also. And remember, she said before in previous verses, Alama Sita Sakai, no? Enough of friendship with that non-whitish person. Something like that. Whoever needs to come here, no problem. And then she continues through Sanatana Goswami. Please bear with me. Because we were ignorant previously, being his wives, so interestingly, the gopis here speak in terms of considering themselves their wives, not because they were officially married with Krishna, but that's they are in Swakiya with Krishna, in Tattva. In Bhava is Parakiya. In Tattva it's Swakiya. We never hear the term Parakiya Tattva. It doesn't exist. Because in Tattva, they belong to one another. Swakiya means to belong to one another. So they belong to one another. They are Swakiya in Tattva. That's what Jiva Goswami presented Radha and Krishna linked in the context of Swakiya. But in Bhava, what it feels like, Parakiya. Oh, I belong to someone else. Abhiman is over there. Radha's so-called husband. So that creates this whole tension and dynamic. So she says, we thought that we were his wives. We felt like this. That was our experience with him. But eventually we experienced great pain by contact with him. We believe the words of your cheating friend. Remember, she's speaking to the bumblebee, taking the bumblebee as a representative of Krishna. But we believe the words of your cheating friend to be true. He said words like, I will come back. Remember when Krishna departed from Mathura, say, I will return. In some few days, 2-3 days, now some considerable months have passed. And also then he sent another message with some messenger being in Mathura, I will return eventually to see my relatives and so on. Many messages like this, which are actually which keep the gopis and all the Brajavasis alive in separation from Krishna. The only little like thread that keeps them alive, their prana flow in their nostrils is this promise of Krishna, I will return. That's the only, because they think if Krishna returns and we have died, he won't be happy with that. That won't please Krishna. So somehow or other, we have to struggle to remain alive for his pleasure. That's a consideration. If it's for me, I will have died after 1 second Krishna departed, they will say. But since he said he will come and we still believe him, even though he's a cheater, somehow we have that hope he will return. So somehow we have to manage to remain alive, to struggle to keep, I mean, again, this is important to understand. When you love someone, that's how you will feel. For us, it may sound like weird and extreme, like you're struggling to remain alive. Maybe you have some dysfunctional emotionality there, some depression crisis, you want to commit suicide. It's not because of that. Because you love someone so much that you cannot just keep your life without that person. So this section is speaking to us, is a portal to this ultimate goal of life. So somehow we are maintaining our life with the hope that he will return. So please speak about something else. The Bhagavatam said that also, that I am Antya-lila the Brajavas, and especially the Gopis, they are struggling really hard to remain alive. Basically, that's their daily situation. What are you doing today? I'm trying to remain alive. I'm struggling so hard. The prana wants to live. There are many poetic descriptions of this, but they want to live there, and they are trying to, because their prana is with their prananath, with their praneshwar. Krishna is their praneshwar. He's the Lord of their prana, the Lord of not only their breathing, as we say, but the, as I sighing. When you are in love, you don't breathe, you sigh. You don't no longer breathe normally. It's like, no. So their prana tries to go with their praneshwar. So they're trying to keep it back, basically. So, Sanatana Goswami concludes his commentary saying, holding her chest with both hands in pain, for a moment being bewildered, Sri Radha falls on the ground. That is indicated by the word etat. Etat means this, and this means to this pain and feeling. So when she says this pain, she indicates that by putting the two hands on her chest and collapses and faints, basically, after saying these words, after finishing these words. So you can imagine how it's witnessing all this, and really he doesn't understand what's going on, but he kind of understands something is going on, something unique, something that I'm starting to know Krishna from another perspective now, because he thought he knew Krishna. I'm so close to him. I'm his minister, his great friend, great devotee. He had this ego, if you will, and now he's realizing, I don't have a clue who Krishna is. Here I'm finding Krishna, discovering Krishna in Krishna Prem. In this type of Krishna Prem, I'm finding another Krishna. He has Krishna Prem. His Krishna Prem shows him a type of Krishna. Now he's discovering another Krishna Prem, which shows another Krishna, a deeper Krishna, because the deeper Krishna Prem is there. Are you ready for more?
Yes.
Okay, you are courageous personalities. So let's continue with Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary, which he has many commentaries, interesting. He has the Lagu Vaishnava Toshni, he has the Krama Sandarbha, and he has the Gopal Champu, which is again some way another narrative of the Bhagavatam. So similarly to Sridhar Swami's idea, Sri Jiva Goswami Prabhupada suggests that Sri Radha is hearing the bumblebee, saying to her, why do you say that Krishna is a danger to Dharma? Basically, why you are attacking him in that way? Previously you met with him alone, and you did not say those things that you are saying now today. Why then? Or Jiva Goswami says, maybe the bumblebee is suggesting, oh lady, first hear the message from your lover, and then consider what to say, how to act. Then you can become angry if you want. Do not become angry in advance, basically. So Sri Radha will reply with this verse showing, I have very good reasons to become angry. It's not in advance. Already something happened for me to be like this. So according to Sri Jiva, Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī is saying, for us, truth is not just imagination. I mean, she implies what I'm saying is not just my fantasy. It is based on pratyaksha, direct experience. I experience all the things I'm saying. I'm speaking with, I walk in the talk, basically. It's based on perception in the present, what I'm feeling now, and what has actually occurred in the past. So I'm speaking with this type of background. First, we took his words as remarkable. We took Krishna's great personality, as you do, Bumblebee. You consider your friend as a great personality. You took him very seriously. We committed the same mistake, basically. But later we realized that those words were like the song of the cruel hunter. There's no truth whatsoever there. It seems true, but only some killing is hidden behind that, some very obscure, dark intention. So he said those words to us. No? He said to us, I cannot repay my debt to you. And of course, Krishna means that. I mean, Sri Radha is saying he's a liar, But we know, no, Krishna really meant that. And then as Mahaprabhu, he tried to walk the talk also. He said those things as Krishna, and then as Mahaprabhu, as we explained some weeks back, he took sannyas. The gopis left all their family ties, all society. Krishna's Mahaprabhu, he's leaving Nadia, Sachi, Vishnupriya, and accepting sannyas. The inner meaning of Mahaprabhu's sannyas is part of his attempt to reciprocate with the gopis. There's an inner meaning to Mahaprabhu's sannyas. There's an external meaning, which is more connected with, okay, people will take me seriously, but the inner meaning is gopis will take me seriously. So I have to, he renounced everything and wear this color that is connected with Radha's path, because Radha has the kumkum on her chest and her tears of separation fall like torrents, and when tears fall on the kumkum, they mix together and they create these colors called saffron. So Mahaprabhu dressed himself in the color of Radha Bhav, in separation from Krishna. But again, here Sri Radha in the Sanchari Bhav of criticizing Krishna, say, oh, he told us, I will come back, I cannot repay my love for you. He has promised all this stuff countless times, and we have believed him countless times. What to do? Because we have this confidence. Great persons speak always the truth, so we consider Krishna as a great person. And though sometimes he deviated from his word and do some other stuff, still we had firm faith with him for some period of time. But eventually things happen to be differently, and we are feeling very sharp pain because of previous contact with his nails. Some scars were there. Some scars as well. Because in illusion we thought we were his wives. He was treating us as such. We believed him, but eventually here we are, there he is. He left us, he's with another ladies in Mathura and so on. But we were attracted to him, joyful when he wore his forest dress. We were eager to meet him. Jiva Goswami says, but realizing the touch of his sharp nails, also called hand thorns, to be arrows, we experienced only pain and not happiness in that love. This happened because we were foolish. Oh, Bumblebee, I swear the contact with his limbs does not appear in my mind, she says, which is a lie, of course. She's full of Krishna Mai, but in this ecstasy, say, I'm not thinking about Krishna. But she cannot but. And Srila Jiva Goswami here say that there is some incongruity of the verbal expression here in regarding metrical reasons, which technically speaking is a mistake. But since that expression helps to highlight Sri Radha's emotional disposition, that's considered alankara, an ornament. There are many verses, like in the Bhagavad Gita, similar, when Arjuna sees the universal form and he's full of fear. There are some of the verses, there are metrical irregularities, but they serve to illustrate the mood in which Arjuna is. So they are considered a type of alankar. There are many types of alankar. So they show they convey the particular bhav. So this is similar. Jiva Goswami said, due to own mad, to divine madness, she's pronouncing wrongly the verse, if you will, something like this. But that's the highest type of ornament. Sri Radha continues through the pen of Srila Jiva Goswami with the analogy again of the deer and the hunter. So the deer is hearing the sound of the hunter, and he thinks that it's truly favorable for them. Again, the doe hears the, oh, my husband is calling me and going for the meeting. So it's not dangerous. There's no danger implied, she will think. But then the experience is sharp arrows piercing their hearts. So try to follow the analogy. Just as we experience the pain of love from his nails, we remember his touch and we are suffering. Not because the touch is suffering, but because we are in separation from him. That's actually the meaning here. All this has to do with Krishna is not with us. We long for him. And then Sri Radha says, according to Sri Jiva, I infer from the inner pain that the touch of his nails is actually poisonous. There's some poison in the tip of his fingers. And the bumblebee, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, will say here, but all of you gopis are very respectable women, and you are comparing yourself with animals. That's not so befitting. So animals become food for men generally. So how can you compare yourself to the deer or to the doe? So Jiva Goswami says that Sri Radha considers the doe to be favorable to her, like to be part of the same group, basically, like to feel some empathy. We are going through the same experience. So she's with us, basically, something like this. So Sri Radha includes the doe in her group, basically, in this way, praising them as the wives of the black deer, which also says to me means the wives of Krishna. Remember, Krishna Badva. Krishna means the black deer as well. And also interestingly, Srila Jiva Goswami also describes the meaning of the word upamantrim. Generally, it's translated as messenger, but also upamantrim can mean how is the word? Buffoon. In the Bhagavatam, that's appearing in the 19th verse of chapter 70 of the 10th canto. The word upamantrim is used for a buffoon. So Jiva Goswami takes the idea of that Sri Radha will refer to the bumblebee as a buffoon here, or jester. So she's saying, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, to the bumblebee, "Oh jester, by your buffoon methods, you are a learned buffoon." She's speaking sarcastically. Give up joking. Give up some other news. Sorry. Whatever knowledge you teach, learn from him is not new. Any knowledge other than knowledge of him does not give us fear. But knowledge of him, we are fearful of that non-whitish personality. Show mercy to me and talk about someone else, something else. Which again, it's not that she wants to speak about something. She cannot but speak about Krishna and hear about Krishna. She's a very personification of Krishna Kirtan and Harikatha. But in the ecstasy of separation, it seems she wants to hear about something. So, end of the commentary, Srila Jiva Goswami. Still alive for Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Sarartha Darshini? That's special intense always. If you know that one. Okay, so Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti starts his Sarartha Darshini. Again, going back to the beginning, to the previous of the verse on the bumblebees, saying something according to Sri Radha's ears. The bumblebees say, "Why did such intelligent ladies as you establish friendship with such a person as Krishna?" Like implying, you are criticizing him that so much. Why you are establishing friendship with him? If he's so worthy of criticism. So to this, Sri Radha replied, according to Srila Vishwanath, "Well, we were so foolish to accept as true such lying words, such as the words he pronounced, Napariham nira. Again, this word, Napariham nira bhakti sanjaya. I cannot repay my love to you." This is just like the wives of the black deer, who by having faith in the song of the hunter, see the result of his song by feeling the striking of his arrow. That's the result of following the song, following those words. And similarly, we are experiencing the sharp pangs of lust, quote unquote, because of the touch of Krishna's naka or fingernails. Then she continues through Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad. We have been extremely foolish, since even after once seeing its consequence, we repeatedly trusted Krishna and had to again experience the result. So this sounds like us learning through suffering. Like, I know this is not good, but this time it will be better. That's right. Oh no, it's the same. It's even worse. But after some minutes, but I don't know why some hope is coming in my heart. This time will be better. Okay. So it seems that she's speaking like an ordinary human being, learning through, having to go through certain things to learn through suffering. As the saying goes, two ways of learning, hearing or suffering. Hearing from the proper source or suffering. But again, remember, this is aprakrita. This is not mundane. It seems mundane, but it's super transcendental. That's aprakrita. Seems mundane, but it's beyond Vaikuntha. But she speaks from that vantage point, from that humility. I'm an ordinary cowherd girl, while actually she's the supreme goddess, basically. So she continues, basically, we trust his song again and experience this result, and this applies to the doe as well as to ourselves, who in both cases had to suffer repeatedly a distressful condition because of this call he made to us. Therefore, O jester, again, he goes back, Vishwanath taking Upamantrim a jester. So Shirada chastises the bumblebee in the context of this, and Uddhav by extension. Uddhav at this point is like, I mean, is she speaking to me or? Because for Uddhav, the bumblebee is not speaking. I mean, only Shirada is hearing the bumblebee speaking. But Uddhav is like, all the things that she's saying to the bumblebee perfectly apply to me because I'm the messenger here. So is she insulting me or the bumblebee? I mean, first of all, he's bewildered by hearing her insulting Krishna, who is Uddhav's master. I mean, his devotion for Krishna is not in the context of bullying with him. But she's discovering, oh, they're insulting Krishna in Vrindavan. But at the same time, it's not an ordinary insult. The more they insult him, the more they love him. How this works. And in the context of all that, all the things actually are being said regarding Krishna, but also sometimes to me or the bumblebee. But she speaks to the bumblebee if the bumblebee is speaking, but I don't hear the bumblebee speaking. So what's going on? So Uddhav at this point is short-circuiting, basically. Now, this section also is called Uddhav Sandesh, or the message of Uddhav, but also can be called Uddhav's short-circuiting. Yeah, that's another extra-official name of this section. Or Uddhav's PhD. He's actually receiving his postgraduate instruction here. So here Shirada says, "O jester Upamantrim, therefore speak of other things which will make us happy, for news about Krishna simply makes us suffer. If you don't have any other subject to speak about, then leave this place right now." And this will be connected to the next verse. We won't be speaking that today, but in the next verse, I just give you the trailer. We will speak about next Monday. The bumblebee starts to fly somewhere else, but not because she rather say that, but just starts to fly like a bumblebee. It's not on the same place over. But she rather connects. Oh, she's flying because I say this. He's now going and telling Krishna all the things that. So her mood changes suddenly. We won't go there now. But let me share some concluding words today. Remember, each one of these verses of the Bhramara Gītā constitute one type of Chitra Jalpa. Chitra Jalpa means, again, colorful. Chitra means color, colorful talks, but also mad talks, because they are colorful in the context of Prem. So this is the type of Chitra Jalpa called Ajalpa. Ajalpa. And how is Ajalpa defined by Srila Rupa Goswami? He says, a statement spoken in disgust, describing how the male lover is deceitful and brings one misery, and that one should stop talking about him and talk about something more pleasant instead. That's known as Ajalpa. In other words, other things give happiness, whereas he gives grief. So that's the type of mad talk we are finding in this particular verse. And generally, we're also closing our study by quoting one poeticized Bengali version that Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati made of each one of these verses. But I will just quote the English translation of that. Sorry, I was not able to poeticize in English. So, and it's another way of rereading the verse one more time before closing. He says, "O messenger," Sri Radha says, "just like a foolish bird, believing in the sweet songs of the hunter, gets pierced in the heart and suffers all kinds of miseries. Similarly, we believed in Krishna's words and have suffered great agony. The touch of Krishna's nails invokes a sharp pain of lust. It drags me down. Please talk of something else." Some classes back, also in connection to Krishna's nails, we also quoted the Hamsaduta, which is a poem written by Rupa Goswami, where Lalita Saki is sending a message to Krishna in Mathura through a swan. Hamsaduta means Duta is messenger, and Hams means Hams. So at the end of the Hamsaduta, Lalita Saki, with her classical mood, she will chastise Krishna and compare him with all the Das avatar. Matsya, Kurma, we shared that some months ago also. So when the Nrsimhadev comes, the term for Nrsimhadev comes, Lalita will speak to Krishna. "Oh," she says, "no, Nrsimhadev has descended in this world in Satya Yuga many ages back, but it seems that still his nature remains with you. Because just as Nrsimhadev became partial towards Prahlad and tore apart Hiranyakasipu's chest with his nails, in the same way, you have become partial to Akrura, who took you out of Braj and tore apart the chest of all the ladies in Braj.
No.
Although he is Akrura.
Yeah, that's
Krura.
that's part of the paradox there. So, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Sometimes that's how the gopis will refer to Srimad-Dev, basically. Instead of asking for protection, just to have a good reason for. So again, here we have, let me share some words of conclusion. We also try to share those always. Here we have Sri Radha seeing Uddhav somehow, but not seeing Uddhav at the same time. Like speaking to a bumblebee like a smart, calling the bumblebee or Uddhav through the bumblebee like a bogus messenger of a bogus master, if you will. But again, saying all this to the bumblebee who is actually not speaking is just like a bumblebee doing what a bumblebee does, basically, like buzzing. As the bumblebee does not speak, at this point, Uddhava cannot speak. He's totally like speechless. Like, what's this? This is his second day in Vrindavan only. Remember, Krishna sent him to Vrindavan. Please send a message to the Brajavasis and confirm my love for them. So he arrives there on the evening. When he arrives on the evening, he immediately enters into the house of Nanda and Yashoda and passes the whole night witnessing their Vatsalya Bhav in separation from Krishna and being totally overwhelmed, trying to convince them, your son, you are so fortunate, your son is God, you have parental affection for God. And Nanda Maharaj looking at Uddhav saying, I heard that you were a wise person. But now you speak this nonsense and realize you're total foolish. You say my son is God. That's totally absurd. How can he be God? I know God. Narayan. He's Shanti Purusha. He's the personification of peacefulness. He never lies. He's always stable. I know Krishna. He said, he lies, he steals, he's unstable, he has so many desires. Ananda doesn't know his playboy side yet. No, so that's on top of that. So Uddhav is totally like, what can I say? How can I gotta tell them stop lamenting because they are lamenting for Krishna alone. So that's his first night. He cannot sleep the whole night, and after such dose, such shock, he goes in the morning and finds the gopis, and this is going on now, witnessing Sri Radha. His first, not even the first day of Uddhav there. So you can imagine how. I will see what happens after he's staying there. So again, here we are witnessing Vipralamba. No, Vipralamba means love in separation. This is a very esoteric topic. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning, now some new guests have come. I don't know how much these topics are. You are familiar with this topic, so I beg forgiveness. Some of them go really above your head because they are very deep, esoteric, thematic topics, which describe love in separation, again, which seems something undesirable, if you will. But actually for us, in our tradition, separate, to begin with, we will say, I mean, you want to experience the joy of union in love? And someone will say, yes, hopefully. So the next point is, but for experiencing the joy of union, you need separation. Because if you never are separated, how can you speak of union? If you are always with the person, there's no union per se. Union means there was no union before. You follow? So separation has that role to play, to nourish. On one level, one can say, yeah, without separation, union cannot be nourished. That's on one level. But still in that platform, separation is seen as subordinate to union. But actually for us, that's not like that. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this line, which is from the Ujjwal Nilamani. So he says, at this point, one may ask, if separation simply nourishes the union, then it should be counted just as a mere limb of sambhog, of union, of the rasa of union. But generally, separation is considered as a separate rasa altogether. So why it is called rasa? Well, it gives so much pain, overtly at least. It seems they are suffering so much. We say, I don't want to suffer. Generally, we don't want to suffer. We were told, chant Hare Krishna, be happy. Do not try to say that to Sri Radha here. But the point is, here in separation, there is what we may call a paradoxical joy. Externally, it seems pain. Krishna Premir Adbhuta Charit. The outstanding, astonishing qualities of love. In separation, especially, outside it may seem like poison, but inside it's like sweet honey, nectar. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, when the Nayak and the Nayika, the hero and the heroine, in separation, go through the different stages of separation in Prem, all this in Prem, of course, they experience each other in separation in every single sense, mentally, visually, physically even. Although there are separations, there is physical, mental, visual experience of the beloved in separation, what we call this union in separation. So in that separation, they respectively, he said, they will embrace, they will unite with each other and so on. And he concludes saying, this astonishes them so much that their separation, during which this all occurs, can even be called Sambhoga Punjamaya, which means an abundance of union. So he said separation can be called an abundance of union. There is a type of union in separation. So that's called, and on top of that, that is the different nuance of opinions of our acharyas. Some acharyas say separation is better than union. There's one verse by Rupa Goswami, Padyavali, 240. He says, separation is better than meeting. Why? Why? It sounds masochist, but there's no masochism here. Why?
The feelings are stronger.
Yeah. But there's one point that he makes here, interestingly, in this connection.
Because when in union there is one Krishna, separation there are many Krishnas.
Exactly. So this comes from this verse, which is originally from Sahitya Darpana, and Rupa Goswami has his own version. So when you are united with your beloved, you see that person, one person. I mean, when Radha is united with Krishna, she sees one Krishna. When she's in separation from Krishna, she sees thousands of Krishnas. Everything is Krishna. Everything becomes, everything reminds her. It's a like augmentation, upgraded version of union. It's a form of union. And that's what we find in there's a relishment in separation. That's the point in itself also. We see that even in our Goswami, for example, the very last verse of the Sad Goswami Astaka, I describe how the Goswamis were not in Vrindavan just asserting, I saw Krishna, I am with Krishna, union. No. The opposite. Hey Radhe Brajati Viki Cha, like this, Chalaliti Nanda Suno. Where are you, Krishna? Where is Sri Radha? Where is Lalita? Where are you? Where? And crying and rolling on the ground. That was their Brajamandal Parikram. It's not like, okay, now we will walk some kilometers, take the bus. No, they were just rolling on the ground and crying and reaching the different lila stalls. So do not be concerned about fancy clothes in those type of parikrams. You would just like, the Braja Raj will be your constant Abhishek. Govardhana, where is Govardhan? Where is the Jamuna? Where is Krishna? That's the very last verse of Sad Goswami Astaka. Just crying in separation. And again, externally it seems, I don't want that. I had suffered so much, and these people say that this is the best thing possible for eternity. Oh my gosh. I knew one person like that. He joined Gaudiya Vaishnavism and he misunderstood all this stuff. So he said, oh no, I don't want that. And he became a Buddhist. No suffering, nirvana, no more suffering, no more anything, no self. Yeah. So, but if you understand that we spoke again, this is not suffering as we know it, because we suffer generally because what? Because we don't find purpose in suffering. Even on the material platform or our present situation, when we suffer, it's not we are suffering because of what we think we are suffering. We are suffering because we are not finding purpose in that particular situation. We are not finding the purpose in suffering, and that's giving suffering, the lack of purpose. Only lack of purpose gives suffering, the undesirable suffering. But when you love, full purpose is there. So even if it takes the form of suffering, there's purpose. So there's no real suffering as we think it. I mean, actually, real suffering is this one. Our suffering is just phantasmagoria or something. So actually, this suffering is an expression of full bliss. This suffering is another phase of ecstasy, of full bliss. It's paradoxical, but it works like this. In this world, it was the opposite, basically. The so-called bliss in this world is actual suffering. Oh no, you know that. Everyone is running after so-called bliss. What's the end result of that? There's no ananda. Sometimes called Jadananda. Jada means inert. The ananda, the bliss found in the inert stuff. It's like oxymoron, basically. And here the so-called suffering is bliss. So it was like this. So in this way, in order to pass, you have some few minutes more, with your permission. I would like to share some ideas that also I received recently in contact with one friend of mine. So in order to pass this test of the Bhramara Gītā, it's a whole test that you listen to this kata, you really, survive that and pass it properly. You had over and over to recalibrate what's going on here actually. And especially consider this reality of parokshabad, indirect speech. It seems something, but it's something else. It seems something, but it's something else. For example, here Sri Radha is referring to Krishna as basically a womanizer. In Sanskrit, the term for that is lampata. Mahaprabhu uses that term in the last verse of Sikshastakam also. Lampata. You understand the word womanizer?
Yeah.
Like playboy, basically. Debauchee also. So it seems like, okay, he's, criticizing him. That's not a praise. But actually it's praise. It's praise. The other day I was reading one verse in Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, verse 233, and there she's referring to Krishna's Lampata Mani, which means the crest jewel of all debauchees. And why crest jewel? Because his debauchery is most charming, actually. It's most glorious and sacred. Now, as we were mentioning Prem Samput today, verse 56 of Prem Samput, Sri Radha mentions how charming is Krishna's debauchery, if you will. And she says, let me share that with you. She says, speaking to, remember, Krishna disguised as a heavenly damsel. She said, oh Saki, Sri Radha speaking to the heavenly damsel Krishna. Because of its debauchery, this love makes my beloved fresh at every moment. And its savior is very intoxicated indeed. It delights the three worlds like a stream of nectar, but it also burns like the sun at the time of universal destruction. So first she makes this clear. It's so intoxicated, so sweet, because it's in the context of Prem. Remember? And she gives these two examples, like the cool, soothing moon rays in union. It creates this effect, but in separation, it's like the scorching rays of the sun, burning and burning. Forest fire. We are in the forest fire of samsara. Sri Radha is in the forest fire of samsara. Samsara also means full essence. Sara means essence, and sam means complete. So she's in a samsara of her own, which includes a forest fire as well. So sometimes this premise compared like a blending of nectar and poison. It creates something, but it's too sweet to stop drinking. It's killing me in separation, but it's too sweet to stop drinking. And also, of course, we could say, as there is some saying in English, they say like, as above, as below?
As above, so below.
As above, so below. So similarly, we could say, in one sense, whatever we find here, unbecoming, as we mentioned before, like envy, jealousy, all this stuff that the sadhak has had to transcend. Resistance, opposition towards Krishna, we find that in Sri Radha, in its perfect form, for the pleasure of Krishna. For example, and with this I will try to close. I will try. So this is man. There's four types of separation. Here, Sri Radha, you have the Purbarag, Man, Prabhas, and Prema Vaicitya. So here she's experiencing Sudura Prabhas. Prabhas means separation where the beloveds are distanced by geographical distance for a long time. Purbarag means the separation you feel before the official meeting with the beloved for the first time. But you have seen him, heard about him, and you fell in love with him. That happens with Sri Radha in the unfolding of the earthly lila. She hears about Krishna first she saw a picture of Krishna for the first time. It's over. That's called Purva. There's no first official meeting yet, but they're falling in love. Prem by Chit is another unique type of separation. I won't go there, but it's like anticipating the separation even in union. And Man, so Bhramara Gītā is Prabhas, which is Krishna's in another distant land. But Man means when Sri Radha gets angry with Krishna, sometimes with good reason, sometimes without. Hetu, ahetu, it says. Now it's said like this, I'm not creating that. Also, but this Man represents, she becomes angry with Krishna, she's denied. She's in opposition towards meeting with Krishna. But with a particular purpose of increasing the experience of rasa. It's not that in every single sense she doesn't want to speak about it. It's just for nourishing the particular experience. So that's, on one side we have this, again, we have resistance toward Krishna, but that's not pleasurable to Krishna. But Sri Radha expresses resistance, that's in the context of nourishing the lila. So there is one concept in this connection, and with this, I promise I will close. Maybe I have to break my promise. But in the Braja Bilas Stava of Raghunath Das Goswami, there's one verse which describes Yoga Maya. So Yoga Maya is the main, how to say, facilitator in the whole Krishna Lila, organizing everything. So she's the guru of everyone there in Braj. So there's one expression there which says, Man Abhisarotsava. So it's Man means, again, resistance, and Abhishar means the opposite of resistance. When Sri Radha is running for meeting with Krishna, Abhishar sometimes is translated as love journey. No? When, I don't know, Krishna plays the flute and Sri Radha just is running behind the sound, she's not there yet, but she's on her way. That journey is called Abhisar. We are in our own type of Abhisar, love journey, if you will. But she represents that. So the dynamics in Vrindavan in connection with Yoga Maya is Man Abhisar Utsava. Utsava means festival. So there is a festival of resistance and love journey. Like a way of saying union and separation also, basically. Or rejection, you say? Yeah. And search. I'm searching for, I don't want to see you. Now, in Man, Sri Radha will say, I don't want to see the face of that black snake, basically. And she will tell all her Sakis and Manjaris, you just tap on the door, and if he shows his face, you know what to do. And the Manjaris say, I have to follow the orders. Now, Krishna will fall to the floor, please give me allowance, enter into the kunj. No, if I do that, I mean, I will be, me myself will be kicked out from the kunj. So like this. So, one friend of mine, he defined this interestingly. He said, like, I will read it literally. This twin polarity, like the energetic polarity of love, which alternately repels and attracts. That's the idea of Man Abhisar, repelling, attraction, repelling, attraction. Thank you. Like twin polarity, ad infinitum, without stop, forever. And so Man refers to this like resistance, basically. So when this Man arises in Sri Radha, for example, nothing will change that. I mean, Krishna, no matter what Krishna says, Sri Radha is in Man. No, she's Manini. She's called like that. So until its purpose is nourished, is fulfilled, basically, the purpose of that particular man, mood, is proposed, nobody will be able to calm her down, if you will, because it has a purpose to attain. And then when it is attained, because the attraction of Abhisar, of this love journey, the magnetic attraction of that will come, and nothing can stop that either. Nothing, nobody can stop Sri Radha Man, nobody can stop Sri Radha when she goes running after Krishna. But each one of those two moments have to reach their proper point of maturity, if you will, to have a purpose. Let's share a practical example like this. No, for example, Sri Radha again is in Man. She doesn't want to see Krishna. She doesn't want to hear about Krishna. Again, in the context of thickening her love for Krishna, actually. So her manjaris, her personal servants, they won't contradict that mood. They won't try like to break that, you see, because they know this has a purpose to attain. So they will witness how that matures and unfolds until it gets its purpose. Even they will encourage her in that connection, like to nourish that particular mood, until the time of the resistance process. It's like ripened. Okay, its purpose is fulfilled now. It has some mysterious purpose to fulfill, we could say. And then again, when that happens, when the purpose was fulfilled, that's the moment to step forward and invoke what's called manabhanga, which is the breaking of that particular mode. And that will give way to the other abhisar, to the love journey, to Sri Radha wanting to run and meet Krishna immediately. But it's also, this is say that there is a very specific moment that one has to do that, to intervene, you say, intervene with proper consideration. Because, for example, if Sri Radha delays a second in breaking her man at the proper moment and reaching Krishna, Krishna will die in separation from her. Because meanwhile, she's in man, in resistance, Krishna is suffering so much, more and more and more. So there's a particular point when that has to be broken and Krishna is to be saved. Radha here is the one that seems she needs to be saved. But Sanatana Goswami will say, Krishna needs to be saved as much as all the Brajavasis need to be saved in separation from each other. And the same idea, if the separation goes too far, Sri Radha herself will come closer to a state called pralaya, or death-like devastation. So it is said that the great personalities will tolerate these two expressions, like the man and the abhisar, the division, this blockage, until its purpose is fulfilled, until the tension, as my friend put, is fully charged, if you will, basically. And then they will appear to break it and to allow the love journey again, to reconciliation to continue. So some ideas, again, I know this is not topics for ABC, kindergarten, newcomer, or whatever, but at least it's nice to know all those things exist and are waiting for us, and somehow or other we have to learn how to get closer to that more and more. So thank you so much for your time, your attention, and I think we are already in time, but we can leave some few minutes if there is any question someone may like to present in this connection.
Sorry, what determines that point where it's?
Sorry again?
What determines the switch from
when to go from one side to the other? Oh, of course, that's all in terms of bhava. No, I mean, for someone who is expert into this, I mean, we it's not that okay or whatever, something happened on the outside or whatever, but they are so much in attuned, you say, attuned to each other. They will know when that was the moment. It's basically that. I mean, they are so much, and of course they are always in time. No, it never happens that Krishna died or something like that. But it's explained in that way to imply the intensity of the emotionality involved there, but also the expertise of all these servants. I mean, those are the services that these servants will perform in eternity, that we are invited to perform on the side of Madhurya Bhava or Priyanarmasaka as well, saving Radha and Krishna on a daily basis, and Mahaprabhu as well, because he's Krishna and Radha Bhava in separation, and day after day, those types of very delicate, refined services are required. So we spoke the other day, attending the necessity of the Absolute. At this point, we are more identified with Krishna attending my necessity. I need this, I like this, give me this, I want that. But at one point, the shift will be in another direction. How can I live for your necessities forever? So it's a gradual shift, but it's important to understand. We are going that direction, basically. To identify with the necessity of the Absolute and to develop an identity of service out of that identification, basically. That's how the real identity of service will come. If we are not identified with higher necessity of service, there won't come a whole identity of service from them. Something else? Yeah.
So I understood that this Chitra Jalpa and Ajalpa comes from Sanchari Bhava of Shri Radha. So does it mean that this crookedness of romantic love is caused by the Sanchari Bhavas? And
No, on the contrary. I mean, the Sanchari Bhavas are caused by romantic love, because romantic love is Sthayi Bhav,
oh, yes,
Madhurya Bhav,
yeah.
and Sanchari Bhavas come as a
Transcendental.
byproduct of the Sthayi Bhav. The Sthayi Bhav is in this case Madhurya Bhav, and the Sanchari Bhavas or Vyabhichari Bhavas will come as transitory waves. Sometimes they say like waves in an ocean. The ocean is the Sthayi Bhav, and Vyabhichari Bhavas are like waves that come and augment the Sthayi Bhav for a minute, and they merge again into the Sthayi Bhav. But again, it's not that the Vyabhichari Bhavas generate the Sthayi Bhav, but basically the Sthayi Bhav is a particular one, and there it will have corresponding
But
Sanchari Bhav. Of course, there's no beginning in time, and whenever you reach that experience of rasa, all the ingredients are there in place, basically.
But Uddhava was bewildered by this Sanchari Bhavas, yes?
Yeah,
Because he could not
I mean,
recognize them.
yeah, of course, yeah, that's the point. Yeah, of course,
because he had in different rasa, and there is absent of this.
Exactly.
Bhavas.
Of course, he understands that Radha's Sthayi Bhav is Madhurya.
Yeah.
I mean, it's overtly clear. And Krishna himself spoke to him about her and the Brajavasis on some level, as much as he could. Actually, they say that Krishna sent Uddhav to Vrindavan, so Uddhav may became more qualified to return, and Krishna has someone to whom to reveal his mind in more detail, because he couldn't do with Uddhav in that level, because Uddhav didn't have a clue about what's going on in Krishna's heart and in Vrindavan. So he's saying, I'm sending you to Vrindavan with the hope that you get your PhD there, so that you return to Mathura, and I can really empty my heart on a daily basis to you, my dear close friend, because he's going through so much separation. So yeah, he's discovering all this universe of Sthayi Bhavas and Sanchari Bhavas unique to Braj. He has his own, of course, Sthayi Bhav, and therefore Sanchari Bhavas as well, because every Sthayi Bhav has Sanchari Bhavas. But yeah, how they play out in Braj, that's another movie, another story, basically. So yeah, he's learning a lot here. Okay, something else?
That was gonna be my question. Like you
Yes,
already
Uddhava.
So my question was gonna be like that. Like after Uddhava, goes to Vrindavan, then he, returns, to Mathura. So what will be like his inner purpose? Like he's not like staying in Vrindavan forever. So that what will be like the reason? So that was a very good answer. That Krishna has someone, to reveal his mind. So like Uddhava and Dwarka can eternally, do the service.
Yeah. But nonetheless, Krishna says too that we will see that in the last sec, because we will finish the Bhramara-gita, and then we will have like 5 more lectures trying to make sense of what we saw. But before sending Krishna, before sending Uddhav to Braj, he tells him, you go there, you send this message, and after that you stay some time there. Because he knew what was going to happen. So we don't return immediately after giving the message. And of course, after hearing all this, Uddhav becomes totally like intoxicated with Braja Prem. I mean, he has his own bhav, but that is affecting him. And he stays there to say like for 7 months. And on a daily basis, he's going, and all the Brajavasis are taking Uddhav to all the Lila Stalis, all the places that Krishna performed pastimes, and all of them are narrating each Lila to Uddhav, and all of them crying, like these 7 months. And all of them, like at the end, being very grateful to Uddhav. And at the very end of Uddhav's visit to Vrindavan, there are 6 famous verses he pronounces, like offering pranam to the Brajavasis and to the gopis in particular. And I will recite the last one, because I recite always the last one at the end of this talk, when Uddhava, the very last verse before leaving Braj. So there is offering pranam to the gopis. He says, Bande Nanda Brajastrinam Padarenu Navikshna Saja Samharika Tudgitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. So this verse, he says, Bande Nanda Brajastrinam. I offer my pranam to the ladies, to the gopis, to the ladies of the village of Nanda Maharaj. Padarenu Navikshna Saja. I perpetually, Abhikshanasa, Padarenu, I take the dust of their feet on my head. So I put my head on the ground and receive the dust from their feet perpetually. Abhikshnasa Pandinanda Brajastinam Padarenun Abhikshnasa Jasam Harikatot Gitam Punati Bhuvanatra. Why I do that? Because their kirtan, Jasa Harikatot Gitam, their loud Harikata, their kirtan about Krishna, Punati Bhuvanatra, has the power to purify all the three worlds. So I'm perpetually inclining my head there with the hope that I may be also touched by a particle of the dust of their feet, and therefore I may be blessed. So in this way, he's departing from Brachover and Prananta. So, and this is the high point that really created in Uddhava this powerful samskara. So, some words we want to share. Next Monday we will continue with next verse. If you would like to come, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Garantara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Bhramara Gītā ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Praman. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnava vrinda ki jai, Gaura Hari Bol.